This video is sponsored by my day job. All views and opinions are my own. Likes and subs are appreciated, but don't hit the notification button. Does anybody actually even do that? Seems annoying. Don't do that. Colonial Marines is often regarded as one of the worst bait and switches in the history of gaming, and we ended up playing it a couple months back. I didn't remember being overly into it 10 years ago, but I never ended up finishing it either because life happened. So is there any fun to be had playing Colonial Marines in 2023? Well, let's get into it.
Ready to get it on. Go!
Welcome back to JBG. Finally got around to another flashback video. Today we're taking a look at Aliens Colonial Marines on the PS3. So you're probably wondering how we even got here. I have a habit of impulse buying sometimes when I find a good deal on something. I ended up seeing an unopened collector's edition on eBay for around $30. Considering even today that's a great deal. I was one of the autoloader statue that came with the collector's edition, so I couldn't help it. I was eventually going to have to play what was essentially a free game. Colonial Marines is a first-person shooter based on the Alien franchise from developer Gearbox Software of the Borderlands fame, released back in 2013. Considering how well known the development and launch problems surrounding this are, I'm not really going to go into it here.
Hey, maybe you haven't been keeping up on current events, but we just got our asses kicked, pal.
But I still find it funny that basically a typo of tether caused all kinds of AI problems.
Don't you have any idea what you've done here?
Surprisingly though, I still had some fun with this. But it obviously has some major flaws, and I actually have a recommendation for the right audience, but we'll get to the context of that soon enough. Even for a 10-year-old game that many believe is the worst game ever made, I'm still going to avoid major spoilers outside of the story setup, even when explaining my opinion on the story. But I will be spoiling the major plot twist for the 3 people still not aware of it when I talk about the Stasis Interrupted DLC, but I'll throw up a warning for those 3 people just in case. So the game takes place between the events of Aliens and Alien 3. You play as a U.S. Colonial Marine, Corporal Winter. Your ship, the Sephora, is responding 17 weeks after Hicks sent a distress call from the Sulaco about the disaster that happened on LV-426. When you wake up from cryo, your captain informs you that the squad that already responded encountered resistance, so you're there as reinforcements. Your mission is to back up the other squad who is trying to get the Sulaco's flight recorder and figure out why the Sulaco is back above LV-426. As reference, Fury 161 is the planet that the escape pods landed on when ejected from the Sulaco during Alien 3. Reaching some of the survivors, you continue on through the Sulaco to search for more of the survivors.
They're dead. All right, can I go now?
After finding and freeing a Marine named Keys, you agree to go with him to retrieve the flight recorder, part of the original mission. After finding the flight recorder and fighting your way through the attacking hordes of Xenos, you're on your way back to the Sephora, while Keys detonates a grenade in the tunnel attaching the Sephora to the Sulaco when a chestburster makes an untimely entrance. The detonation strands you back on the Sulaco, and you go to the cargo bay to clear it for more reinforcements, noting all the Weyland-Yutani gear that's set up in the area. Once at the bay, you encounter hostiles that were stowaways on the Sulaco, obviously Weyland-Yutani mercs, as that seemed to be the requirement for all Alien licensed games up until Isolation. You're contacted by a Private Bella to go rescue her, only to learn her and a facehugger were already intimately acquainted. As the Weyland mercs start firing on the Sephora from the Sulaco, it damages both ships, causing you to evacuate on a dropship, and end up crashing down on LV-426. The captain directs the squad to the colony, Headley's Hope, to set up a base of operations and try and consolidate any Marines left alive. Since this is the basic setup after the first few missions, I'll leave the main story here. But we're going to get into the DLC stories, so here's your spoiler warning. I'm going to spoil major plot points of the main game, so if you're one of the last 3 people that don't know the story yet, skip to the next chapter. So the Stasis Interrupted DLC tries to explain how Hicks was even still alive since you rescued him from the Weyland mercs down on LV-426 in the main story, since it wasn't really explained at all during the main campaign. To be honest, I didn't even finish the DLC. After figuring out how to even purchase it on PSN, already knowing how the Hicks retcon of Alien 3 was explained, and getting to the end of the main story, I just didn't care too much. I only got just past the first level, and really just wasn't interested in more. It being a $10 DLC, I'd recommend just watching a full spoiler video. It kinda makes sense if you suspend even more disbelief than the initial campaign expects you to. But I did notice some behavior differences with the aliens in the DLC versus the main game, so let's get into some of the game mechanics. There's a lot of what you would expect from an FPS of this era mechanically, but it might come as a surprise that there are some mechanics here I really liked. I'm being serious. The first being the motion tracker. They take a page out of the original Doom 3 flashlight mechanics. Here you have to switch from focus on the tracker or focus on using your weapons. This is actually effective in building some tension trying to figure out where the motion signals are coming from, while still wanting to have a weapon ready for anything that jumps out at you. There's some legitimate tension buildup in the first couple levels, though it does kind of trail off. Another thing I appreciated was the disregard for inventory space. You aren't tied to only 2 weapons like you were in AVP. It's not realistic in any way, but it's good for fan service to just let you use whatever you want and swap on a whim. Outside of the smart gun, that is. There's only a handful of sections where you get to use those. But smart guns are OP in any setting, so I don't hate it here just like I didn't hate it in AVP being restricted. There's also a couple sections where they strip your guns away for tension that actually worked. One was where you're running under the floorboards trying to avoid an alien that's hunting you as it tries to get you through the floor. And another one I really liked was where they introduced a different type of alien in a sewer section that's blind but attracted to noise. Not being much one for stealth sections as I'm just not patient enough for them, this section really didn't outstay its welcome and I actually found it pretty well done. So how do the weapons add up?
We got nukes, we got knives, sharp sticks. Knock it off, Hudson.
On top of a decent variety, there's actually some mild customization to your arsenal too. You build up experience playing through the game. Through the experience you unlock multiple customization options. Alternate fires, extended mags, laser sights for hip fire, and even some cosmetics. It doesn't go too in depth here, but I could definitely appreciate the option to swap something like a grenade launcher under your pulse rifle for a shotgun attachment if I wanted to. I'm not a huge FPS player, so I'm not sure if this was done much 10 years ago or not, but even just some simple swap-ups for your loadout I can appreciate. Along with mild customization is some fan service with elite weapons throughout the levels. From Gorman's pistol, to Hicks's shotgun, to Vasquez's smart gun. These are all similar to the weapons you already have in your inventory, but they have specific perks. Usually more damage or higher ammo cap. Then there was the notorious problems with the alien AI at launch. I'm not sure if this was ever patched on consoles, but I have some of the best luck with buggy games. I didn't really get any good game cap of glitches I was hoping for. They aren't smart or anything. I just didn't get anything funny clip-worthy. So I really can't say much other than the AI just kind of swarmed, and that doesn't really bug me considering they made an entire movie out of that. Though the AI of your party is absolute dog shit. I can forgive some of the fact they really don't do much damage when firing at the aliens, but the fact they constantly get in your way drove me insane. The worst being when they would stack right behind you and prevent you from backing up. These levels tend to be claustrophobic by design, so this got me killed more than a few times by not being able to retreat from incoming damage. At launch there was drop-in, drop-out co-op and multiplayer, but I don't even know anyone that owns this game on PS3, so I couldn't even test the co-op. That's if the servers are even up anymore on PSN. So going into the pro-cons, I'm going in on a low note here. To the one level mechanic that almost got me to rage quit, the autoloader boss fight section. This was a part of the game I'm sure every fan of Aliens was looking forward to. I know I was. This was the clunkiest and glitchiest part of the entire playthrough. It's way too slow to be effective, it does such little damage when you attack, it's completely disorienting how it jerks you around when you get hit, and ended up taking me so long to get past, it just felt way more drawn out than it actually was. I think I just ended up getting a lucky spam of attacks after 45 minutes of getting killed over and over again. As much talk as there was about the terrible alien AI here, I didn't find it too unbearable. It's basic, and for the most part they just charge you and try and swarm you, and that's kind of what I expected. The companion AI, on the other hand, can be absolutely infuriating. Not to the point of rage quitting the way the autoloader section made me want to, but it gets pretty obnoxious. I'm pretty forgiving of graphics, especially on a 10-year-old game, and although I don't mind dated graphics, I still have to recognize this came out the same year that The Last of Us did. I get this was in development hell for years, but these models were dated even for 2013. I really didn't notice too many performance issues here, even though they were pretty bad at launch, but again, that's 10 years ago. I'm not sure if that's also due to my good luck with buggy games, or if the performance patches just fixed them. For me, I didn't really mind the graphics much, but this will bug some people. The environments and sound design are pretty much on point here. They really might have pulled the sounds of environments and weapons right out of the movie, but it's exactly what you would expect. But then there's the story and acting. The story is ridiculous. From how the Sulaco ended up back over LV-426, the spoilers in the DLC section I already mentioned, or even how Hadley's Hope is still standing after the description of the thermonuclear explosion that was described in the movie Aliens.
With a blast radius of 30 kilometers, equal to about 40 megatons.
All the acting is pretty bad, even Mr. Spoiler Actor's performance. Everyone was phoning it in on this game.
So are you planning on talking about what just happened with you?
I think it's safe to say that the United States Colonial Marines are at war with Weyland-Yutani.
But to be honest, once I just started completely ignoring the story and acting, I really stopped caring about it. To be fair, some of the most loved FPS games have absolutely absurd storylines. This will mainly be hit or miss depending on if you're a fan, and if you're a fan that can just ignore it. And not spoiling it, but the ending boss battle and ending cinematic are extremely disappointing. The final boss battle being the one that hits the hardest. I didn't expect much out of the ending cinematic after ignoring the ridiculous story, but the payoff of the last fight just wasn't really there. I definitely expected more out of it. So after all this, can I really give a recommendation to play this game? Well, actually, yeah, kind of. If you're a fan of the franchise and are able to ignore the story, there's some guilty fan service fun to have here. From the space jockey cameo to picking up weapons from the characters in the movies, I definitely wouldn't recommend this to anyone that isn't a fan of the franchise. This is a dated PS3 era shooter for sure. But I think fans that can take it for what it is, there's some fun alien shooting here. Here's the catch though to why I would really recommend it to a fan that can ignore the story. The game is dirt cheap in 2023, especially on the PS3. While I pretty much got the game for free with the collector edition deal I got, you can pick this up through Mercari or eBay for like $5. And I completely recommend it to a fan at $5. Some people will still call this a ripoff at $5. I figure what I even spent for a single beer at a bar isn't going to give me the same payoff, even with the parts of this game I had to push through. I don't recommend Stasis Interrupted at all though. It's still $10, the story is pretty far-fetched, even compared to the main story of this game, and it just doesn't do enough to expand on the main game to make it worth it. I had some fun playing through the main campaign. I just didn't care at all when I got to the DLC, and didn't even want to play it. But for $5, I just don't see how you could argue against this for any fan of the franchise willing to ignore the ridiculous storylines and just go in for a fun alien shooter. Let me know down in the comments if you ever played through this game, and if you actually found some redeeming qualities here like I did, especially this many years later. Until next time.
Frank, we are leaving!
What? Toodaloo, motherfucker. Hey.